Hey everyone! Okay, so this week our topic is going to be the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. Okay, you might have already heard of some of these, but we're going to go in depth into this. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of what our topic is and to give you a little bit more information that you might not get when you're just reading it. Okay, so I'm going to go through all the slides. I'm going to explain them a little more in depth, okay? And then you can go through and read and answer the questions, okay? Because I'm not going to read it. I'm just going through and talking about it. Okay, so we have this thing called the Dust Bowl, all right? And you're like, it's pretty self-explanatory, okay? The middle of America basically kind of makes like a bowl, like it's a big flat area, all right? Our panhandle is at the very bottom of that, so only the Great Plains of Texas was really affected, but the parts that were devastated, okay? This is like one of the only like mega natural disasters that affected more than just one state in the United States. Okay, we've had Katrina, we've had Sandy, we've had Harvey, all these mega like natural disasters, but they really only impact maybe one state, maybe just a like little bit of the US, and it's only for a short period of time. This Dust Bowl lasted for 10 years. 10 years that this is going on. Now, the way it started is we have all these farmers that are making big bucks during World War I. Remember, we're not fighting in America during World War I. When we join in the war after the Zimmerman Note, after the bombing of the Lusitania, we ship our soldiers to Europe to fight there, okay? None of the fighting takes place in America. None of the fighting ever takes place in the world wars in America, which means that the impact of the war isn't as strong in America as it is in Europe. So we're sending all our men over to Europe. Now, in Europe, they have torn up the countries with all of this bombing and with digging all the trenches that we talked about, okay? And they don't have the space to grow food. And so they rely on the US to do that. Now, middle America, like the huge middle part of America, all right, is what we call like the breadbasket. That's where most of our wheat, corn, all of our goods are grown. And so they go into overtime during the war, okay? They're making a lot of money. Once the war ends, though, Europe starts recovering and they start regrowing food. And so they don't rely on us as much, meaning the prices start dropping. You're going to learn this in high school, but there's this thing called like supply and demand. If you have more supply, meaning more stuff than you do people wanting to buy it, you have to lower the prices because they're not going to buy it. And so wheat starts dropping in price. And the farmers, okay, they either owe a lot of money still to the bank because they took out loans to buy more equipment, buy more seeds, buy more land when the prices were good. Well, they're going to have to start, they say, okay, well, if our price of one piece of like 1 pound of wheat goes down, well, we'll just need to grow more wheat to make up for it. But when you grow more wheat, that adds more supply, meaning the demand keeps getting lower comparatively. So the prices keep dropping, okay? And so this is happening. They're over farming, meaning they're just pulling up all the ground. And then on top of that, there's a massive drought that hits the area. Okay, so you have all this land that they've taken the grass out of, they've taken trees out of, and they've planted, they've like kind of mixed it up. And so all the soil's out. And then they have this huge drought, okay, and it kills all the plants. And this leaves just dirt. And then a huge windstorm comes in, okay, and it picks up all this dirt that's not being held down on the ground by anything and rises it up, and you get these huge dust storms like you see in this photo where it would completely blanket areas for, it could be hours, it could be days if it's really bad, and it's like completely dark. They would go like, they would have to turn on the like street lights at like 4 in the afternoon during the summer. Okay, we normally don't turn on the street lights till 8 o'clock at night during the summer, and they're having to do it at 4 p.m. because the dust is so bad. All right, so the effects of all of this, okay, it's going to be horrible for farmers. Okay, they are going to be giving up because they can't grow anything. There's a horrible drought, all their crops are dying, and so they just a lot of them, if they don't owe money, they just try to sell their farm. A lot of times people aren't going to buy it, so they just abandon their farms, and they're moving westward towards California where there is no drought and where there's still being able to have a lot of agriculture, still growing a lot of stuff. A lot of people are going to lose everything because they still owe money to the banks, and so the banks will come and just seize all their stuff and say, you know what, you still owe us money. If you can't pay us, we're going to take your stuff. And so these people are homeless, and so they just start moving west. We see this massive migration of people westward. All right. We see 1/3 of the farming population leave the panhandle of Texas, leave northern Texas. And on top of this, on top of just the Dust Bowl happening, we also have the Great Depression, okay, which I'll talk about in a minute. A lot of Texans are going to develop lung issues because of all this dirt that they're breathing in, and it's going to affect a lot of children because their lungs are still growing or they're not strong enough to cough up all this dust. So you're going to see a lot of people get pneumonia, get really bad lung diseases. So some of them will die. Others are just going to have lung issues for the rest of their life. They'll do anything, okay, to get rid of this dust. Okay. So we're going to switch to the Great Depression, okay? And this is not just when people are really sad, though they are sad. We call it a depression because the prices in the stock market crashed. Now, the stock market, you might have heard about it, like the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ. If you've been watching the news recently, they've been talking about it because we have seen a dip in our stock market because people can't go outside and buy things. So companies are suffering. They're not making as much money. And people are having to lay off their jobs, meaning they're not buying anything. However, what we have right now is nowhere near what the Great Depression was. If you've ever heard of like the Great Gatsby, the Roaring Twenties, this is when credit cards became a thing. People would take out money from the bank to buy into the stock market because they could make a lot of money that way. But once the stock starts dropping prices, people freak out. They sell their stocks, meaning their prices drop even more, and the companies lose all their funding, and so they bottom out. All right, and we call this Black Thursday when that happens. So it's just a vicious cycle, okay? Because investors can't pay their loans, so then banks fail. Now, when banks fail, okay, you don't have no more money, and so people start freaking out and try to get all their money out of the banks, which makes more banks fail, meaning factories and businesses are going to close. When factories and businesses close, people lose their jobs, meaning they can't buy things because they're not getting paid, and then more factories are closing because people aren't buying their stuff, and it just kind of circles back around. And this is going to last 16 years, so longer than y'all have been alive. This just no money anywhere. Employment rate is like 30%. People are losing their homes. All right. People start trying to sell their children to make money because they can't afford to feed them. It just is really bad. All right, and so in the Brain Pop video, it's going to tell you more about how did this affect everyday life. So I want you to watch it and answer the questions. All right, if you have any questions on how to finish this, please comment on the assignment, or you can email me. It's just emma.spohr@myhisd.net. All right, thanks.